Hello and welcome everybody, it's Stephen again. I hope that you all had a really awesome weekend and that you're feeling refreshed and ready to start the new week again. So I just wanted to come to you today with a short video which just explained how we performed last week in the markets for our portfolio as a whole, and also give you a slight update of some of the key news stories that happened in the markets last week. So overall our portfolio performed really well and I was really pleased with it. So we performed at just over 6% profit for the week, which was tremendous. If we compare that against other industry benchmarks such as the Nasdaq performed at about 3.2% overall profit for the week, and the S&P 500 was just slightly below that at about 2.8% for the week. So overall, our portfolio outperformed. If we look at some of the key news stories that happened last week in the market, the majority of the news stories were pretty bullish. So overall, growth stocks had a big bounce back. So if we compare that to previous weeks where, as I've mentioned before, there was a lot of sensitivity around bond yields, actually growth stocks bounced back very well this week, and the bond yields were actually pretty stable throughout the week, which gave kind of precedence for the rise of these growth stocks. So yeah, that was some really good metrics. We also saw some really good data that was actually coming out of America, such as the factory output and the factory productivity was actually the highest that it's been for 40 years. So this means that there's a lot of kind of production coming back and a lot of activity that's actually starting again. We also saw really good data as well to do with kind of leisure, travel, and other such industries in the US as kind of slowly come out of these restricted states in terms of lockdowns, etc. So some really good figures there, and some really good figures in terms of the employment rates in the US, which often shows kind of a bounce back in the recovery. So that was quite good. Also, we saw some positive news from President Biden as well, with his infrastructure plan, which is looking very likely to go through. So that's kind of given a lot of kind of bullish sentiments to the market. Though overall in the US, it was a pretty positive week. Things are a lot better as well in Europe. A lot of the case numbers have been reducing, and we also see some markets such as the UK now, where they're very close now to coming out of the first stage of lockdown, which will allow them to be able to open a lot of kind of outdoor venues, and also some areas which they're allowed to open, such as shops, etc. So that's very good news. I can see that the opening of the economy, it will probably be very good news for UK stocks moving forward. Also in Europe as a whole, Germany are also in discussions as well to get the Sputnik Russian coronavirus vaccine to help them kind of roll out and have enough vaccinations to be able to vaccinate people in the country. So that's pretty good news for the Europe economy as well, although as we know, Germany and France are a little bit behind UK and some other countries in Europe, as they had quite a few spikes in cases a few weeks previously. So that's kind of it for the overall wrap up of Europe and US. In China, there was quite a big piece of news as well, in terms of which happened just on Saturday, where Alibaba have actually been fined over $1 billion fine, which is kind of antitrust, kind of monopolistic practices, which the government said that they've conducted. So this might have a bit of an effect on Alibaba kind of moving forward. I still expect it to be a very strong company. We do have it in our portfolio, but it's not a massive weightage percentage. So I'm pretty kind of relaxed on that, and I still think it's going to have a long-term future. I just think that there's some political issues between China, Alibaba, and also they've been a little bit inflamed by the comments that's been made by Jack Ma over a certain period of time as well. So this is bound to have caused some problems. So as I move on to the top 5 performing stocks of last week, you won't be surprised to know that many of those stocks are actually in the tech sector, as we had a general bounce back in tech and growth stocks last week. So at number 1, the best performing stock of last week was actually Square, and that is for a number of reasons. So of course the bounce back in tech stocks helped a lot last week, but the other reason why I think it outperformed even my other tech stocks in my portfolio was the fact that Square actually holds a significant amount of Bitcoin on its treasury. So Square actually performed at a 14% profit for last week, which was actually really tremendous. So the second best performing stock in our portfolio last week was Apple, with over an 8% gain. Yeah, it was really a beneficiary of a real bounce back in tech stocks last week. So that did very well. The third best performing stock was actually Plus 500, which is actually a social trading company, which is actually quite similar to Etoro, but it's actually listed on the UK stock exchange. So we have really seen a big rise in retail investors actually investing in the stock market, and this is actually helping with the tailwinds for companies such as Plus 500. The fourth best performing stock in our portfolio was Amazon. Amazon did really well last week as well in terms of the recovery, and the fifth best performing stock was BlackRock, and BlackRock's actually performed pretty solidly in our portfolio, since it got put into the portfolio. So that was at over kind of 5.4% growth for last week. So that was the overall 5 best performing stocks of last week. So let's talk a little bit about crypto now. So crypto had a really good week in the markets last week, especially towards later on in the week, around kind of Friday and Saturday, where Bitcoin performed really well and other cryptocurrencies as well. There's a lot of kind of bullish sentiment in the market, and a lot of that is to do around a number of different positive news stories that have appeared. So one of them was that it is expected that over $2.7 billion of Bitcoin has been bought by Ukrainian officials. I think that this can only be good for sentiment moving forward, especially as we see kind of more governments, companies, hedge funds, etc. take a positive and active interest in Bitcoin. So that was a good piece of news. Also, we're seeing a lot of enthusiasm around the Coinbase listing, which is due to happen on the 14th of April. Not quite sure when it will be listed on Etoro, but that's the official listing date. I'm actually expecting that to take off really well, especially as there's such positivity around crypto at the moment, and Coinbase are having a lot of interest in their platform, and making a lot of revenue. So I see that being very positive for the markets, but I think it will overspill and be very positive for Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies next week. So I'm keeping an eye out and expecting that we're quite likely to break through all-time highs. If we look at other cryptocurrencies as well that actually performed really well last week, BNB, which is Binance's native coin, is actually performing really well, and it was one of the best performers of last week. But there's actually a lot of stuff that is actually going on behind that. So Binance as an exchange is growing from strength to strength. And especially as you consider that there are a lot of use cases for BNB coin, you get a considerable discount when you on exchange fees, etc., when using Binance, and there is a lot of other use cases as well for the coin. So you know that's performing really well. Also, the Binance Smart Chain is actually growing from strength to strength as well, which and they're also really active in other areas such as decentralized finance. So I'm expecting a really good future from Binance, and that's why we hold it in our portfolio. Stellar is actually performing well, and it had a really great week in the markets last week as well. I still think that has a good amount of room to grow as well, as we see more and more positive sentiment. I'm very bullish on crypto moving forward, but I just want to say to people generally as a whole that as time goes on and as the bull market actually progresses, I've been taking some profit along the way. I don't think anyone ever got poor from taking profit, and I think it's very important to control your emotions and be very disciplined during these times, and not to get too high on the sentiment of the week, the month, or the months ahead. So, you know, I'm continuing with my strategy of trimming my cryptocurrency holdings as they go up in price, and diversifying into other assets. So, so I really say to all my copiers, you know, although it's tempting at times to think, you know, why doesn't he invest some of his available funds and add to his cryptocurrency holdings, or why doesn't he invest in this coin or that coin? I think it's important that when the market's doing really well, that, you know, we start to take profits, but we also start to think that you know, it might be time, a little bit of time to defend in some areas. And just like when the price of crypto goes down, it's most likely that it's time to attack. So just trying to kind of keep a level-headed mind when considering about the about cryptocurrency. But I do see that we have a positive future, and there is a lot of room still to grow. So I wanted to talk a little bit about XRP for some of my newer copiers and followers. So I actually used to have XRP in our portfolio, and to be honest with you, it's something that I'm pretty bullish on moving forward. However, I made a decision, I think it was in December, late December last year, or might have been early January, to actually remove it from our copy portfolio. And the reason why I did that is I considered it to have significant risks, and it was something that I didn't want to expose my copiers to in the long run, because I know that it's your hard-earned money. So I decided to remove it from our portfolio. So obviously it's done very well over the last week or so. And actually there has been some positive news in terms of the legal case. So one of the positive news from last week on XRP was the courts have actually decided that the SEC cannot get access to the bank accounts of key senior executives. So a lot of people are considering this, that this is a precedent, and that it could be likely that the case gets thrown out. What my overall position is I think that Ripple as a company actually have a pretty good legal case, and from my untrained, I'm not a lawyer, I think that they do have a good chance of winning that case. That being said, I'm still not willing to put it into our portfolio until the legal case is completely over with. And I think it's very important to safeguard your money, because I consider my job not only to grow your funds but also to protect your capital. So I'm not going to be adding XRP anytime in the near future. As some of you may know, I usually do have a certain amount of available balance on hand at any given time. And the reason I do this is because I like to have the flexibility and be able to seize upon future opportunities as they arise, or if we have any market weakness. That being said, I currently have slightly more than normal available balance, and some of that is because over the last couple of days, as we've approached either all-time highs in some cryptos or close to all-time highs, I've actually trimmed some of our positions, which has actually given me some more available cash. As I'd always planned, I plan to diversify more into other areas in the stock market. So it's quite likely early next week that you will see me making a few new positions in new stocks to add to my portfolio. A lot of that will depend though on whether they meet and trigger my my order price. So let's see how that goes, but I think that's going to be very exciting for our portfolio moving forward. Thanks very much for taking the time out to watch this video. As usual, if you have any questions at any time, then please let me know. I try to pride myself on being as approachable and as humble and as helpful as possible. So as I said, feel free to reach out to me. I'll be happy to answer any of your questions. Just a short note that I know I haven't done an educational video for a couple of weeks. One of my key core goals is to try and educate you and make you better investors as well. So I will definitely get to that this week and make you another educational video for my awesome copiers and followers. So thank you very much and have a great week trading ahead.